What's going on, guys? Hey, it's Sean, Matt here, and welcome back for another week. Had a doozy last week.
Last week was interesting.
We were just talking. It smells better in here. It looks better. Had a little bit of flashbacks. If you've not watched the video from last week, please do yourself a favor and check that one out.
Yeah.
A little interesting.
We definitely have to do it again, though, with some kind of a charity thing attached to
Absolutely. Yeah, that was. Yeah, you made a good idea.
I want to go hotter.
Okay.
I want to go hotter.
We have behind the camera here on camera 2. There's all the Scoville units that we had, starting at 18,000 up to the Ghost Pepper. 650,000 Scoville units. So check that out. Next time we go around, Sean made a good idea about doing some sort of charity, get some questions ahead of time, maybe a live feed or something. So be on the lookout for that. So check out the video. It was a fun time. Took a couple days to recover from that video. So this week, wanted to talk, and from last week, a lot of our talks that we had were on, and we talked about experiences. And you've been doing it, I've been doing it over 2 decades now of doing what you do, real estate professional, mortgage consultant. And just overall, I thought a good takeaway for this week is talking about like our daily day in, day out. You know, there's people getting into the business. You had your whole team here. You have some fantastic new agents coming in, grinding, getting things done, closing deals, but it's a lot of work. And a lot of people don't know. And I thought about it after we left that and some of our stories about like the day in, day out of being what we do and doing it, especially if you're doing it over 20 years, what the toll it takes on your family, on your personal life, recalibrating yourself mentally to do this job. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's a grind. It's definitely a grind. I remember when I first started, I was, kind of like, okay, when's the page, when are the paychecks going to start coming in type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember working, 40, 50, 60 hours just trying to find a piece of business to, get a check.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is a lot of people don't realize that, we aren't salaried employees. No. We 100% commission. So if we don't sell anything, we have no money coming in.
Yeah.
And to get to that point to where we get something under contract or find a client to sell a house for or to help buy a house, like there's a lot of behind the scenes work. Like they don't just fall in your lap.
No.
And I think a lot of people think that we're just living this beautiful life of golfing on the weekends or during the week or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't see how many hours we put in between each deal.
I chalk that up to the HGTV stuff a lot of times for the general public.
Oh, wait, it's not like that?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. You don't go and you look at 3 houses and ding dong in the door and then you walk in. There's so much behind the scenes that they don't see going back and forth. And to your earlier point, you made a good comment, like if you're working with a real estate professional or a mortgage consultant, and they might be golfing on a Tuesday at 2 p.m, because that's the only time they can squeeze it in. Like for me, I have 3 little kids that go to school, and picking them up, I got to be at the bus stop to help them out. My wife works as well, as you have dual incomes and dual households, and you might be working all day Sunday. You don't have time to go out when everyone else did that works their 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. So you can squeeze in 9 holes, and then you pick up the phone and you're like, I'm just trying to, and then you get that must be nice. Or that, there are little digs you get, coming through where it's mentally you have to put that in its place. Like, well, I signed up for this. This is I don't have a 9 to 5. My 20 years, for about 18 months, I did switch gears in mortgage work. That I worked more of a corporate office job, and I couldn't. I had a hard time actually transitioning to 9 to 5. Like it was hard for me because it's just I'm not that way.
Yeah, there's definitely some benefits. To what we do, right?
Yeah.
Like we set our own schedules. That's the nicest thing about our job.
Yes, we
do set our own schedules, but when I go away to the beach in the summertime, or if I take a little family trip, or I just came back from Arlington, Virginia, visiting my son. Yeah. Like I was working. Mm-hmm. I was working on holidays. On Easter Sunday, I was getting phone calls, from potential clients, and it's like that's God's day. But you still gotta answer the phone, because if you don't, they're gonna call somebody else.
Correct.
Right. It's oversaturated. At least the real estate side of it is oversaturated with people that are trying to sell real estate.
Yeah.
There's way too many of us.
Yes.
Just in the Lehigh Valley, 3,200 agents or something like that for, 850 sales a year or something ridiculous.
It's such a small. How would you? Because there's a lot of people that, and we've been getting a lot of comments from some newer agents, some experienced. So as a newer agent, and Sean, you've been doing this a long time. Like, are there any like mental tips, like for newer agents that are maybe doing it, maybe 3 to 5 years or in that, and they just it takes a toll on you after a while, right? I mean, to get those phone calls and to do all those things.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not treating it like a full-time job, you're not gonna. The business isn't going to fall in your lap. So you literally have to. My suggestion is you have to go into the office every single day, as if you have work to do.
Yes.
And then you have to find work to do. And the biggest thing, the most important part of your day, of any realtor's day, is calling on past clients, following up with past clients, because the number one source of my business is past clients referring me business, or something that they bought 5, 6, or 7 years ago. They're now ready to sell and move on to their next property.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, though, most realtors don't stay in touch with their past clients.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity for, I got this little thing that we do where we send happy anniversary cards to people on their home anniversary. So nice. When they bought a home, if they bought a home 4, 5, 6 years ago, I start mailing to them cards, because most likely their agent is not staying in touch with them.
Yeah.
The one that sold them their house. So, and sure enough, it happens to me. People buy a house with somebody else, or sell their house after they bought it from me, 10 years ago. But the biggest thing is consistency, like showing up to the office and literally working every single day, even if you don't have a buyer or seller client to work with. You got to find them.
Yeah, they're out there, and having to, and it resonates from what you say too, because I have people that. Our database will come back, they bought a house or they refinanced it, and I didn't capture that business. And I look back on myself of like, what, and shame on me. I didn't reach out. I didn't do those things. And you have to train yourself to come into the office and put the work in. And I think, past COVID, it was hard to do at home. You get kind of lax. You get very distracted coming in here. I've been doing it more and more in my role here at this office of coming in every day. And I see too, the difference is, like, top agents, real estate agents that I work with, you do see that the top producers, and especially like you being a top producer as well, like when we do business together, there aren't as many fire drills on the weekends, because you're doing your work at the office ahead of time, preparing for that showing on a Saturday, instead of let's go see it quick on a Saturday at 9, and then your loan officer, or you're getting a phone call at 10 o'clock on a Saturday to quick put numbers together. It happens, I get it, but the bigger brushstroke of the better agents are prepared. They're in the office, they're preparing for that time, so when the time comes, they've had their fee worksheets, they have their pre-approval letters,
right?
Doing what they need to do.
Yeah, sometimes you need it like ASAP, because you just meet that buyer. But
sure,
yeah, for the most part, we're pre-qualifying buyers, so prior to taking them out, we're having a conversation with them, getting everything in order, and and one of the things I tell buyers is, don't be surprised if when we go look at a house on this weekend, that you fall in love with one and you want to buy it. So we have to make sure we have your pre-approval ready to go.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So we're preparing them, not on Saturday when we're looking at the houses, a few days before.
Yeah.
Along with everything else that we're kind of telling them what to expect in the process. But there's a lot of behind the scenes work that people don't realize. And one of the biggest things I would love for people to know is our phones never stop ringing, right? And I get it. Like my clients are my clients, and they're the life of lifeline of my business.
Yep.
And so they work. They may work 9 to 5 jobs Monday through Friday, so they're available evenings and weekends.
Yep.
So I have to be available.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, but I mean, I get calls 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, from clients. Hey, I want to see this house. And I'm half asleep, All right, let's go see it.
Yeah. I had an agent, like we were just talking before, I had an agent last night, 9:23, and I go to bed rather early, and I picked it up, and it was because we had a very short close window, writing the agreement that night, and the market that we're in, you have to move, and you have to move fast. You can't just lay back, and it's going to be this way for some time. That's where it's, and if you're a loan officer out there or a real estate agent out there, you guys know it can take a toll on family life. That's where it's really finding that balance where, probably in the last 8 years of my career, I really, having 3 kids, you got to balance it. You have to, that's the hardest thing it took me the last year or so. And it's actually helped me tremendously with work because I'm much more productive now when I get up at 5, I have my to-do list, getting those things done so I can go to Boy Scouts and soccer practices and really carve that time. But it is hard. Like if you're out there working with a real estate agent, just be mindful, or a loan officer. They also too have to carve in those times for their kids, and it is after hours. And you don't want to miss that. It's important to do that, and I think it's rewarding. Because if you start missing that, I've had colleagues before in the past that didn't do those things, and they burn out because there's no reward on it. You're missing so many things.
Right.
It's a very hard balance. There was some statistic you had there too that was kind of misleading about what the average real estate agent makes. And
before we started, I read something that the average realtor makes between $65,000 and $105,000 a year, but that's just not the case. Might be that's not a stat from NAR, the National Association of Realtors. Yeah. All I have on my screen right now is that the National Association of Realtors indicates that newcomers earn less than $10,000 a year. So newer agents probably defined as in a business for 2 years or less. Mm-hmm. But I will say I don't have numbers in front of me right now, but the average realtor makes somewhere around $35,000 a year.
That's about right.
And that's all levels of real estate. And so to make $35,000 a year in real estate, you're probably working full time. Yeah. Right. But you probably have some kind of lack of consistency, or there's something that you're doing.
You do the roller coaster. You want to avoid the whole roller coaster.
I can't tell you. There was times especially when I first got into the business, where I was waiting, 3 months for a check. Yeah. Where I didn't have any income for 3 months, but every day I was working. Yeah. Every day I was working. It's a little different now. I have a team. I grew a pretty good business. So I have checks coming in from my agents' deals, but I'm still active. I'm still listing and selling homes.
Yeah, you are.
And sometimes I may not have a closing even now for 2 months, where I have no checks coming in for 2 months personally. I got team checks coming in, but
sure. Well, that's where people are, and that's the other thing too. I get a lot of they're misconstrued a lot of times with Facebook and social media. Put $20 million producer, and people don't know what that when you're a real estate agent or a loan officer and you have a certain amount of volume that you do, yes, it will be in the millions of dollars, but it's not like you make that much money by any means. I mean, there are splits and cuts and how much percentage of that sale, just because it was a $500,000 sale, you make a percentage of that, which could vary. And then from there, the brokerage usually takes money off the top and splits that. And then you have your taxes, depending how you do, everything gets whittled down. It's not near. So I think a lot of times too, when you see those production numbers, people don't understand what that really means and what that equates to. It's still great production. Don't get me wrong. That's congratulations, you did that. But it's not like you're making that.
Yeah. Well, great thing to address. So the $1 million sales club that every realtor makes, that's really nothing. Yeah. That means that they transacted $1 million in real estate. $1 million in real estate today is probably 2 or 3 houses.
2 or 3 houses, yeah.
Right. So think about that. Over a 12-month period, you sell 2 or 3 homes. How much money can you make? Now you could say, okay, I literally saw the title company give my realtor a check for $15,000. Well, that $15,000 doesn't go to your realtor.
No.
It goes to your realtor's company or your realtor's broker. Yep. Right. And then that broker, depending on whatever arrangement that you have with your broker, is going to take, could be half of that. Yeah. Could be more than half. Could be a little less than half. But they're going to, and then you have to, so let's say you give your broker of that $15,000, you give them $7,000, and you get a check for $8,000 from them. Then you got to pay taxes, right? Yep. So then you're taking about 25%. I would say on average 25% out in taxes. Right. Now you're down to $6,000. Yeah. What did it cost you to acquire that deal or that client that you just closed with? It might have taken $1,600 a month in paying a third party company to receive that lead, right? So now you're down to what was that? Yeah. $6,400. So it just gets $4,400. And then you got, of course, your car payments, your phone, your telephone bill, your gas. So what are you really left with? Yep. Right. At
the end of the day, what is that? And how long? The whole process. Yeah. To go through. Yeah. So that's I think that's our for today's cast. The biggest is kind of behind the scenes of what that looks like. And as a takeaway, guys, be kind to your real estate agent, your loan officer. They're working hard. They're working really hard. Yeah, it's something where we will take the calls. By all means, it's part of our job. We knew this when we signed up for it, that
Absolutely.
It's a 24/7 job. But just know, Sean likes to golf. I do. If it's a Wednesday at 2 and we're on the course, we're squeezing in whenever we can. We'd love to be out there on a Sunday morning with the rest of everyone, but we can't. This is what we can do when we can do it.
And by the way, when we are playing golf, we're working.
It's
right?
true.
So we're
It's true. It is really hard. And then it's always when you're teeing off on a par 3 and you think you got a good shot and you get that phone call right before you got to take, and so now you're lining up on the ball and you're not worried about how you're sitting and dressing the ball. You're thinking about, I got to get that pre-approval letter out, and your whole.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you shank it to the left.
Yes.
Or shank it to
Well, at
the
least
right.
I put that. It makes me feel better about my shanks. So either way, Sean, thank you.
Thank
Little
you,
insight.
Ray.
All right, guys. Again, if you haven't seen last week's cast, check that out. Any questions on anything? If you're a professional looking to get into the business or anything with real estate, not sure, Sean's a great guy to call. Same thing. I had a lot of loan officers reaching out, different things, commenting. Anything we can do to help, get your mind straight on things. Take your time, be with your family, but have fun, work hard, grind. The business will come. All right, guys. See you soon.